September 27, 2025, Africa's largest oil refinery, bigger than anything on the continent, suddenly goes dark. Not from technical failure, not from lack of crude oil, but because a labor union ordered a shutdown. Now here's what makes this strange. The workers at this refinery earn 3 to 4 times what other oil workers earn in Nigeria. The company pays billions in taxes. It's literally exporting refined fuel to America and Europe for the first time in Nigerian history. So why would anyone try to kill it? That question is the key to understanding why Africa struggles to build anything that lasts. What happened in September 2025 wasn't really about workers' rights or fair wages. It's about something much more older, much more expensive. It's about something that has been quietly suffocating African progress for decades. Now let me show you a pattern, and once you see it, you will spot it everywhere. In 2006, Nigeria tried to privatize its refineries. Foreign companies, the one who would build them originally, were invited to come and buy them. Shell said no. BP said no. They all said no. Nobody wanted to buy these refineries. Why? They had seen this movie before. China National Petroleum Corporation actually tried. They bid $100 million for one refinery. The government said it was too low and killed the deal. The Chinese company then left Nigeria and went next door to Niger and built a refinery there instead. Now, here is what is wild. That refinery, it's still operational. Meanwhile, Nigeria spent $1.5 billion trying to fix its own refineries for over the next 15 years. Today, they still don't work. So when one Nigerian businessman, Aliko Dangote, actually borrowed $20 billion, mortgaged his entire cement empire, and built Africa's largest refinery, what do you think happened? Now, if you guessed that everyone celebrated, it means you haven't been paying attention to how the game works. Now let's talk about what the Dangote Refinery actually means. Not the press release version, the real version. Now, for 57 years, Nigeria has been stuck in this absurd loop. Pump crude oil out of the ground, export it abroad, then import the refined fuel back at 5 times the cost. It's like growing cocoa, shipping it to Belgium, then buying chocolate bars back from Belgium at premium prices. Now think of it this way. Imagine you have a mango tree, but you don't have a juicer. So you sell your mangoes for $1 each to a middleman. That middleman juices them and sells the juice back to you for $5 a bottle. You are losing money on your own mangoes. That's been Nigeria's oil economy for 6 decades. Dangote's refinery was supposed to break that cycle. It can process 650,000 barrels of crude daily. It produces gasoline that meets US environmental standards, some of the strictest in the world. In just 3 weeks after production commenced, it starts exporting refined fuel to America. Think about that. Nigerian refined fuel in American gas stations. That's the first time it has ever happened. But here's where it gets interesting, because the moment Dangote started producing fuel, something strange happened. The refinery wasn't getting enough crude oil. Nigeria is literally swimming in oil. It's one of Africa's biggest producers. But Dangote had to import 10 million barrels a month from other countries because Nigerian crude suppliers won't sell to him directly. They would only sell through third-party middlemen in US dollars and at premium prices. Wait, let me make sure you caught that. The Nigerian government owns the oil. Dangote built a Nigerian refinery to refine the government's oil for the Nigerian people. But he he has to pay international middlemen to get his own country's oil. Who benefits from that arrangement? Keep that in mind. We will come to that soon. Now, in September 2025, Dangote reorganizes some staff positions. He says it's because of sabotage, people deliberately disrupting operations. He lets go of about 800 workers and says he will redeploy them across his other companies. Here is where the unions enter. PENGASSAN, that's the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, shows up with membership forms. They want Dangote's workers to join the union. Over 800 workers showed interest. Now, on paper, this makes sense, right? Workers should have representation. They should be able to organize. Shell has unions, Total Energies has unions. Why shouldn't Dangote's workers join? PENGASSAN's argument is simple. They want to protect Nigerian workers from exploitation. They say Dangote replaced local workers with foreign staff, specifically Indians. They say he is violating labor laws. They say workers have the constitutional right to unionize. And legally, they are right. Nigerian workers do have that right. But here is the question nobody's asking publicly. Why was PENGASSAN so desperate to unionize Dangote's refinery specifically? Because here's what's strange. There are 30,000 gas station attendants across Nigeria earning $60 a month. That is half the minimum wage in Nigeria. PENGASSAN doesn't organize them. There are truck drivers working for other oil companies making $160 a month. PENGASSAN doesn't fight for them. But Dangote's drivers, who make 3 to 4 times the industry's average, suddenly became a priority. So I started looking at the money, and that's when the picture became clearer. PENGASSAN and NUPENG, the truck drivers union, charge about 50,000 naira per truck for every fuel delivery. That's roughly $32 per trip. When you are moving millions of liters of fuel, that adds up very fast. Now, Dangote just invested $250 million in 4,000 modern compressed natural gas trucks. Each truck employs 6 workers. That's 24,000 new jobs. But here is the key. These trucks bypass the old depot system entirely. They go straight from refinery to gas stations. You see where this is going? For decades, fuel in Nigeria moved through a depot system. The middlemen controlled storage facilities in places like Apapa and Tinkam. They bought fuel, stored it, then sold it to retailers, adding their margin at every single step. The unions, that is PENGASSAN and NUPENG, collected fees on every truck that moved through these depots. Dangote's system cut out the depots entirely. No depots means no middleman. No middleman means no fees per truck. No fees means the unions lose millions. And the depot owners, the ones who have controlled Nigeria's fuel distribution for years, they'll lose everything. Suddenly, that workers' right fight looks different, doesn't it? On September 27th, PENGASSAN ordered its members to shut off gas and crude supply to Dangote's refinery. Not to negotiate, to shut it down completely. Now think about what that means. This refinery produces 44 million liters of gasoline daily. It employs thousands directly and tens of thousands indirectly. At full capacity, it generates $2.2 billion in export earnings for Nigeria, and a union just ordered it turned off. Now, here's what makes this wild. Nigerian law explicitly says energy supply is an essential service. For essential services, union just can't strike whenever they want. They have to give 15 days notice. They have to try mediation first. They have to get approval from an industrial court. PENGASSAN did none of that. They just simply shut the valves. The National Industrial Court issued an injunction ordering them to stop. They ignored it and continued the strike anyway. Now, let me put this into perspective. While this was happening, electricity generation in Nigeria dropped. Hospitals started rationing power. Gas stations in Lagos began running dry. The fear of returning to fuel queues, something Nigeria hadn't experienced since Dangote's refinery came online, started creeping back. One refinery, one strike, and suddenly 230 million people are staring at chaos. Now, here is why this matters beyond Nigeria. Every single African country trying to industrialize faces this exact same fight. You try to build something that changes the system, and the system deploys every weapon it has to stop you. In this case, they weaponize labor rights. There is a reason why multinational companies hesitate to build major infrastructure in some African countries. It's not just corruption or red tape. It is this: the moment you threaten someone's rent-seeking arrangement, they will find a legitimate sounding institution to fight back with. Could be a union, could be a regulatory agency, could be an environmental group. The tool doesn't really matter. The pattern always remains the same. You try to cut out the middlemen and suddenly you become a villain. The Nigerian government eventually stepped in. After close negotiations, they arrived at a deal. Dangote will recall the 800 workers and redeploy them across his companies. No one would lose their job. PENGASSAN would call off the strike. Crisis averted, right? Well, not quite, because here is what didn't get resolved. Dangote still can't buy Nigerian crude oil directly. He still pays premium to middlemen. The depot owners still control most fuel distribution in Nigeria. And PENGASSAN still has the power to shut down critical energy infrastructure without following legal procedures and get away with it. The system bent just enough to avoid collapse, but it didn't break. These people ask, what if Dangote becomes a monopoly? Fair question. Here is the answer. Nigeria has issued 31 active licenses to build refineries. 31. Dangote is the only person who actually built his. You can't call anyone a monopolist when they are the only one brave enough or foolish enough to raise $20 billion in an environment like this. And here's the kicker: while Dangote was fighting middlemen and unions, he was also fighting the regulator. The agency that's supposed to oversee fuel quality spent months claiming that Dangote's sulfur content in its fuel supersedes the market's requirements. Turned out, it didn't. Independent tests proved it. But by then, the damage was done. Import licenses got approved for competitors to bring in substandard fuel from abroad. Fuel that actually violated the same standards they had accused Dangote for breaking. The regulator doesn't even have a functioning lab to test fuel quality. Yet they were confidently declaring Dangote's products substandard. So let me connect all the dots for you. You have Nigerian crude being sold to Nigerian refinery through international middlemen at premium prices. You have unions charging fees that have no legal basis in Nigerian law. You have depot owners threatened by direct distribution. You have a regulator without basic testing equipment making quality claims. And you have the only functioning refinery in the country being accused of monopoly while 31 other license holders sit idle. This isn't labor dispute. This is what looks like when a country's entire extractive apparatus mobilizes to protect itself. Now here's why this story matters, not just for Nigeria. But for anyone wondering why Africa struggles to industrialize despite having everything it needs, the resources are there, the talent is there, the money can be raised. We just saw what happened to Ethiopia's dam, the biggest dam in Africa. But the invisible infrastructure, the web of middlemen, fees and rent-seeking arrangements, that's what kills progress. Every time someone in Africa tries to build something that gets out the middleman, they discover the middleman has more power than the government because the middleman has captured the government. Through unions, through regulators, through every institution that's supposed to protect the public interest. Dangote survived because he's a billionaire with resources to fight back. But what about the next entrepreneur, the one who wants to build a solar panel factory, or a pharmaceutical plant, or a tech hub? They will all face invisible forces, and most of them won't have the $20 billion or the political connections to face the fight. So, here's what you need to understand if you care about African development, or if you're thinking about investing in African industry. The biggest risk isn't political instability. It's not even corruption in the traditional sense. It is this institutional capture. It's when the organizations meant to protect workers, regulate quality, and ensure fairness become weapons of preserving the status quo. Until African countries figure out how to break that pattern, we will keep on seeing the same story. Someone tries to fix the system fights back. If they are lucky, they survive but can't scale. If they are unlucky, they get destroyed completely. There is a Yoruba proverb: the hand of the child cannot reach the shelf, and the hand of the elder cannot enter the good. It means every generation has its role, but in modern Africa, the elders won't let go of the shelf, and they have also sealed the good. Until that changes, Nigeria and countries like it will keep fighting everyone who tries to help. The real question is, how many Dangotes gave up before they even started because they saw what the fight would cost? We will never know because we can't count the businesses that were never born. Africa Today is a business channel that is dedicated on exposing the financial potential of Africa, which is actually enormous. But there are certain things that we need to break them to make a breakthrough. Statistics show that the number of millionaires in Africa is going to increase by 47% over the next 10 years. And we in Africa Today want to do everything to increase that amount. That's why I'm giving it as it is, so that governments across Africa understand, so that they work intentionally to break these status quo chains and free the African people. I'm Asongwe Luis. You're watching The Strategic Lens. Until next time, bye.